Tim Hortons employee punched by her supervisor and forced to leak through pants while menstruating. I mean, this is awkward. Luckily, I don't get cream in my coffee. July 5th, 2026. Welcome back to the Comic Reporter. I know it's been a few days, and happy belated Canada Day to my fellow Canadians, and happy Independence Day to our American neighbors. I would like to remind America to enjoy its independence while it lasts, because Canada has begun manifesting again, and you never know what we can accomplish when we put our minds to it and virtually nothing else. So enjoy it while it lasts. In case you were wondering, yes, I did do this on purpose. I waited until July the 5th to say both Happy Canada Day and Happy Independence Day at the same time, because like any good Canadian, like I said, you have to manifest the reality that you want. You can make of that whatever you wish, but for me, it means I am simply wishing for Canada to become the overlords of the USA, because that is the position we deserve to hold. America owes Canada so much that I don't think there is any way they can truly pay us back. And because of that, I think it's time they kneel to our superior intellect and economic power. That is the message from Ottawa, from what I've seen. Anyways, now that that manifestation has been put out there, I'm sure it will come true, and we can talk about pride a little bit, because there seems to be a major shift in just how proud the L's, the B's, and the G's are of being included in the same group as people who walk around downtown Toronto expressing themselves while escaping the bonds of the tyranny enforced on them when they have to wear something as capitalistically encoded as a pair of underwear or any sort of pants or anything that is more extensive than a sock stretched over, perhaps just knitted to proper size of their most private parts. Listen. At no point in Canada have we really had anything wrong, held anything against those who had fetishes. It's fine. You can have whatever urges or desires or fantasies that you want. Yes, people will judge you, and yes, certain expressions of those fantasies or fetishes will eliminate you from participating or belonging to certain groups. In fact, the best way to be judged for having a fetish, the best way to not be judged for having a fetish, is to keep it to yourself, like most people absolutely do. For instance, I have a fetish that includes being attracted to beautiful women. That is one of my weaknesses. That's something that I like quite a bit, actually. It's a personal thing. I am not proud of it. I'm well aware that it excludes me from being a member of the communities that aren't attracted to heterosexual relationships. And you know what? I have come to terms with that. It is possible to accept that not everyone is going to like you based on your sexual preference. It's a consequence of being a heterosexual man who enjoys the finer points of the female form. Some might even call it misogynistic to say, but I am fine with not being welcomed into an in group that I have very little in common with, in favor of allowing myself to enjoy things that I like, even if some people find the things I like problematic. I get it. I'm not gay. It's been hard to come to terms with not being gay, but now that I have, my life has become much easier to cope with. And I should say that despite my attraction to beautiful women and how hard that seems to be for some people to accept, I have very little desire to go on a downtown Toronto walkabout, flashing my junk at every beautiful woman I am attracted to in order to condition her to get used to just having men take out their bits in their presence and expect some kind of satisfaction for my expression of self in her presence. That is not something I feel the urge to do or to teach my kids to do, because I'm not sure that is the appropriate way to handle this fetish that I have. In fact, I'm almost certain no one actually does. But you should know that if I wanted to do that, then I could. I absolutely could, and to make it legal to do, all I would have to do is tell my doctor that I was actually not a man and have my gender changed on my ID to because really all you need to do that is accuse your doctor who was present at your birth of to accuse him of overreach or her, which is more awkward, but you can do it, of overreach when they noticed that I had a body part that was not conducive with being female. That's I mean, if that sounds simple, it's because it is. That's really all you have to do to be allowed to slap a few people in the face with your junk. And if they didn't like it, you can just call them homophobic because they are engaging in hate speech for even trying to enforce a boundary that takes away from my protected status and my right to freedom of expression. And if you couldn't follow that, probably going to have to listen to it 2 or 3 times because no, it doesn't make any sense even when you dig into it at its deepest level. I should say that most people don't find this funny. And again, you may have to listen to it 2 or 3 times to really understand the humor in all of this. You may have to sit back, put in your earphones, close your eyes, and just let that assortment of words sink in. Because in our country and our law enforcement, we have decided that any man can smack any woman in the face with his naughty bits as long as his medical records show that the doctor was incorrect with the assessment of their gender at the time of their birth, and that freedom of sexual expression not only allows him to expose himself to people, but also to anyone under the age of 16, and that exposure to underage kids seems to be what the Pride Parade itself has decided it is actually about, because the pride that is being expressed at these parades seems to be taking on a form that is more about taking pride in being able to escape consequences for being a creep. Yes, yes, the Pride Parade has become creepy, and that seems to be the overwhelming theme of the entire event. Listen, for all the complaints about the Boy Scouts allowing girls now, I have to point something out. The Boy Scouts may actually be a far safer place for your daughters than the Girl Guides, because if you weren't aware, when a parent signs their daughter up to be a card carrying member of the proud tradition of selling Girl Guide cookies and learning to knit, they do so while agreeing to a disclaimer that while they're knitting, someone may walk into the room naked and attempt to teach them some more adult lessons about human sexuality. Yes, you have signed over your strong and independent daughter to being exposed to public via legal disclaimer if she wants to be a member of the Girl Guides. Now, most of us understand that disclaimers are normal when signing your child up for, certain special interest groups or class trips or social clubs or sports teams, disclaimers and release forms, all normal when you're doing things like this. Dancing, hockey, cliff diving. My own daughter and a few of my nieces and nephews play roller derby locally here in Kitchener, and one of the things, and sometimes they travel for it too. So one of the things they had to sign over was the right for their parents to sue the league if one of them got hurt in the arena. And I find that understandable. There are risks to mixed gender sports that are simply inherent to the type of activity, and in something as physical as roller derby, and making sure the league is protected from the most litigious of our Canadian population. If there is ever an injury that could be considered catastrophic, one can understand why disclaimers and waivers would be used to prove that the parents knew the risks going in. Although with roller derby, I'm not sure how you couldn't. Anyway, my point is that we may be at the point where the city of Toronto may want to consider including a disclaimer to anyone who decides to move into downtown Toronto, because we are at the point where it's just a matter of time before you're taking a walk in the park with two of your youngest children, let's say they're 2 and 3, you're walking down the path surrounded by hedges, a nice, beautiful day, and then you turn the corner and boom, dick. Just a sock-covered schlong waving in your face, or maybe it's in somebody else's mouth. Who knows? Who's judging for preferences? Saying you shouldn't be in the park while you're doing it, and especially not while you're just trying to take a walk in the park with your kids, and now you have to explain to little Johnny why you can't ask those two super civilized, definitely not savage gentlemen if he can please use the swing set. It's time for a disclaimer because I have a feeling that as support for the Pride Parade slows down, some of these people, some of these completely, totally civilized and socially acceptable individuals are going to start getting even more performative with their preferences because they are starting to lose some of their support from regular, law abiding, normal. I'm not saying that you're not normal. I'm saying that you could be normal and you choose not to be. And the scariest part for the T and the Q portion of the movement is probably not that those who are not protected groups are slowly beginning to have their support eroding under the current occurrences in downtown Toronto. They're probably more concerned that the L, the B, and the G portion have decided that they no longer want to be involved. And most of us, almost all of us, 99.9% of the population is kind of tired of looking at the calendar before going outside just to minimize the chances that you'll run into a purple-haired stud muffin wearing something that looks like chaps with nothing else in the park on the swings. I'm aware of those of you who will say if you don't like what you're seeing, if you don't like what goes on at this event, then simply don't attend. And I will say I have never attended it, and yet I cannot avoid seeing it. I would like to remind you that the city this is happening in is Toronto, and the parade happens right in the middle of Toronto, which, if I can remind you, is surrounded by high rise buildings and businesses who are not, in fact, attending the parade, nor provided any kind of consent for what you were going to shove in their eyeballs. Those people are doing their best not to look, most of them walking with their eyes covered, which tends to be a hazard. Those people are doing their best not to look, but let's be honest. Have you ever driven past a car accident you just couldn't look away from? Have you? 'Cause I have. We call it rubbernecking. It doesn't mean you want more car accidents. It just means that you are confused about what is going on. And once you know what's going on, then it's mostly just two people making asses of themselves and then having an accident. The less bad they feel about making fun of you. And then they start hating it. Because no matter how much you try to look away, no one will stay where they are. They're doing their best to stay in your view. See, because none of those particular onlookers consented to the view you're offering them, and under most circumstances, what you are doing as a participant in said celebration is considered assault. Yeah, I said it. And what you're doing in any other circumstance is considered assault, especially on our eyeballs and on our children's eyeballs. And while I'm certain that your chant of "We're coming for your children" was a poorly thought out attempt at comedy, I will point out that you will never have any children to come for because of biology, and that makes that threat a little lopsided. That feels unfair. If you're going to kidnap our kids, we should be able to kidnap your kids, except you aren't going to have any kids, which means we're going to need to get something else out of this exchange. And I feel like the best thing for that is you just putting some pants on. I feel like we lose a couple of kids, you can wear a pair of pants. See, both my daughter and my son avoided the Girl Guides and Boy Scouts, so they have never signed nudity disclaimers. Nor do we want to get to the point where I need to manifest myself out of such a situation where Canada is not superior to the United States of America. So I have to make sure that we're all on the same page when we say, I'm glad you're proud of your genitals. That is a healthy thing to be. and that is some healthy confidence to have. But you also have a mirror, and I would rather not have your fetishes reflected in my eyes. You have a mirror. Go ahead and look as much as you want. I'm sure you have tons of friends to send the selfies to. You don't need to do it from the corner of Yonge and Eglinton. Thank you very much. This has been the July 5th episode of the Original Comic Reporter. I'll be back soon. And consider this me officially withdrawing my consent. Good night.